You're listening to the Doctors In podcast from martinclinic.com. Although we share a lot of practical and, in our opinion, awesome information, what you hear on this podcast is not intended to diagnose, cure, treat, or prevent any disease. It's strictly for informational purposes. So enjoy. Hi, I'm Dr. Martin Jr.
I'm Dr. Martin Sr.
And this is the Doctors In podcast. And today we want to talk about 5 immediate, we use the word immediate, but immediate things that happen when you cut sugar out of your diet.
Yep.
Right? So these are 5 things, and I guess we could label these surprising things that happen when you cut out sugar.
Yeah.
Things that people don't think about when they cut out sugar. And even if they don't lose any weight.
Yeah.
And that's important to understand that. So these are things, a lot of people when they cut out sugar, they do lose some weight. And it's amazing. I read articles or read different things, people that all they did was cut out sugar and they've lost a fair amount of weight.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from personal experience, for me, when I was now you're going back, right? If you go look back to grade 12, I decided between grade 12 and grade 13, that's aging me, right? Because you went to grade 13, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah,
okay, so there was, in Ontario, there was still grade 13. So for anybody that's younger than me or you, what was that? Well, that was sort of like your first year of university.
Yeah, they call them OACs when we were there. Yeah, okay. I don't know what they call them back
No,
then.
they called it grade 13. You were doing a victory lap at high school. No, but actually in those days you couldn't go to university.
That's right, you had to.
Without doing your grade 13, right?
Yeah.
But I had decided between grade 12 and grade 13 to lose weight. It was funny because I was a sugarholic. I've been big-time bad guy. But what I did, I just simply did this. I just stopped drinking soda. And my dad was the first guy that ever drank a diet soda called Tab. Oh, my word, it was the worst stuff. That stuff, you would die if you ever drank. I think they still make it, but I hope it's not as bad as it was. Because when my dad started drinking, my dad found out he was a diabetic. I think I was 15 or 16. And, that changed our home big time. And my dad lost a lot of weight because he just cut out sugar. Like my dad started having steak 7 days a week. I mean it. Like his diet changed. Like because he took it very seriously. Anyway, so for me, I said, okay, I was 220 pounds in grade 12. I remember going on the scale one time. It was 220 pounds. Now, I was active. I was an athlete. I was a big boy. But I was carrying too much weight, right? And I just said, that's it. I'm going to stop. You know what I did? Stop eating chocolate bars and stop drinking pop. That's all I did. I stopped eating chocolate bars and I stopped drinking soda. And I'm telling you, within, let's say 30, 40 days, I was down to 180 pounds.
Yeah, and
I lost 40 pounds.
And you were young.
I was young.
Active.
I was active, yeah.
But still, I mean, it is amazing. And, one of the things that happens, too, when a person kind of says, I'm going to consciously avoid sugar, they tend to also make other healthy decisions in their lifestyle, right? In their daytime routine. Also, really, if you cut out sugar and you improve your sleeping habits, it's amazing what that does.
Yeah.
And studies have shown this, right? Even when somebody cuts out sugar or they cut out carbs, they get metabolically healthy, even if they're not necessarily losing a lot of weight. So weight loss is a lot of people do these things for weight loss, but we get people all the time that start cutting out sugar, they start cutting out carbs, and like, I'm not really losing any weight. That'll come. You could dial that in a little differently.
But you want to change your body
metabolically, they're getting healthier.
Big time.
And that's why you're doing it, right? The weight will come along, especially as like you said, you could dial that in. A lot of times, we talk about this in previous episodes, but there are other things that are going on or other habits that might be affecting weight that they don't realize. But at the end of the day, they cut out sugar. So we're not even saying go low carb. I mean, if you cut out sugar and you go low carb, well, that's even an added bonus.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Just cutting out sugar, we want to talk about the effect that it has on 5 different organs.
Yeah.
And the surprising effect it has on 5 different organs. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's start by talking about the liver. Now, a couple of episodes ago, I think it was episode 180, we talked about reversing fatty liver. And again, that was a great episode, and we talk a ton about.
They should go back and listen.
Yeah,
to
because
that.
we talk a lot about how much more common fatty liver is becoming,
epidemic today.
It is an epidemic, and it's how it's that stepping stone. It's that first step towards diabetes.
For
and
sure.
A lot of other things.
And a lot of people walk around, they don't know that they have a fatty liver. They don't know.
There'd be no symptoms per se that they would. It's just that it's that starting point. So they would be diabetic because they started with a fatty liver, right? Things started to go metabolically bad once they started to put fat into the liver. So yeah, if I were to cut out sugar today, what effect would it have on my liver?
Well, right away, you are starting to reverse fatty liver because simply, two reasons. One of the biggest factors, I said it last week on our podcast, we live in a different world. We live in a different world that I lived in as a kid and even that you lived in when you were a kid, because the world has changed. And one of the ways it has nutritionally is with something that sounds healthy that is poison to your body, and that is high fructose corn syrup. So that was introduced. And boy, oh boy, there's nothing that destroys your liver quicker than high fructose corn syrup because it goes directly to your liver.
Yeah, it's metabolized similar to ethanol.
Exactly.
And which is metabolized by your liver, right? So your liver has to...
It's like drinking alcohol as a kid.
Yeah, without the buzz.
Yeah.
Which is why you see a lot of sugar bellies in kids. They have these sugar bellies, in a sense. It's like a beer belly, but it's a sugar belly. It's because it's metabolized very similar.
Yeah.
And what you're starting to see is a drastic increase in the amount of teens even and kids with non-alcoholic fatty liver.
Yeah, exactly.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting. There was a study that just came out in January of 2019, so just, not that long ago from the date we're recording this, and they found that even just a diet lower in sugar significantly improved fatty liver disease in children. Yeah. So just all they did,
quickly.
Yes, right. All they did was cut out sugar, and because of that, the liver basically didn't pack on as much fat, and in fact, the liver actually started to lose fat. So if we talked about this in
a liver that's got, in case you think, so what? There's some fat around my liver. But listen, this is a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, go back and listen to episode 180 because we talk about how that is the starting point. You're heading down
you started a
diseased path.
You are heading on to destruction in your body. Metabolically, you are tipping the scales in the wrong way.
Yeah, because the liver is not, we talked about the myth that the liver is a filter, and it's not. It's not a filter. I mean, it's a
manufacturing plant.
Yeah, it helps in the filtration system, but the liver itself doesn't get gunked up in a sense. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
However, the liver can get fatty.
Yeah.
And that becomes a problem. So, all right, so you cut out sugar, specifically, like you said, high fructose corn syrup is especially bad. Well, listen, I always figured that it's kind of funny that if a mad scientist created high fructose corn syrup, because I don't know if you remember back, Michael Keaton, back in the Batman days, the first Batman that came out, Michael Keaton, right? He was the original, well, not from the TV show, but the original movie version of Batman was Michael Keaton. And a lot of people at the time thought it was kind of a strange casting, but he's a great actor, right? And in that movie, Jack Nicholson was the Joker, right? And what's interesting is that part of his scheme was creating poisons that only get activated if you mix, for example, hairspray and a certain kind of deodorant, and then the combination was causing all this disease and sickness. And so it was a master plan with chemicals, and it was kind of funny. But I always kind of pictured the person who invented high fructose corn syrup was the Joker with that same crazy laughing. And he's like, I'm going to really get them because this is not going to be metabolized like sugar. It's going to be metabolized.
It tastes like sugar.
I'm going to make it
better
taste
than
like sugar, and it's going to be cheaper for companies to put it in there. But, I always figured that this Joker, his plan was to create something that was going to destroy livers that nobody would ever know happened. And, he's laughing all the way. Of course, that's not happening, but it's really hard on the liver, and it's in everything because it's a waste. I mean, it's so cheap, and a lot of jobs rely on high fructose corn syrup, right? So it's such a cheap thing. And then, it's funny. We've been around for a while. Remember agave came out, and people are like agave, right? Agave. It's
sounds so good.
It's so healthy,
so
and it's a natural sugar, and then it's loaded with high fructose corn syrup, right?
Yeah.
But agave, it sounds good, right? I mean, how can you say something like agave and it doesn't sound so good for you, right? Yeah. It sounds exotic. It's like, No, it doesn't got sugar. It's got agave. It's sweetened with agave in it, right? That cycle's come and gone. I don't think people really talk about the health benefits necessarily anymore of a high processed agave, right? But it was loaded with high fructose corn syrup. So the first thing is you cut out sugar. Your liver will give you a high five.
And quickly.
Yeah, pretty quickly. And again, the number one thing, and this, I'm just going to read you a quote from the study that was done on kids, because a lot of kids already have fatty liver. I mean, it's very common. And you're starting to see they get the liver fat in their teens, and it just carries with them for the rest of their life. And then they end up with, getting diabetes younger, heart disease younger. And this is what I just want to read a quote here. It says that our study shows that children and their families can follow a diet low in free sugars for up to 8 weeks. And that's what they did. And then they found a difference. So it's like even 8 weeks of cutting out sugar, they saw a decrease in fatty liver.
Yeah.
So imagine if they would have gone full steam ahead and brought the carb count down, the sugar content gone.
Getting the insulin right.
It would have been even better. But so that's the first thing, right? Yeah. That's the first thing. All right. So let's talk about the eyes, because that's a big issue, right? A lot of eyes today are aging faster than they have in the past, it seems like. Yeah. You're getting people and they're getting old age eye disease stuff, macular degeneration. They're getting all these things.
All circulation.
It's all microcirculation to the eye.
Exactly.
And again, high blood sugar levels are eye killers in a number of different ways. It affects the way that the blood flow goes to the eyes, a whole bunch of different ways. One of the best things you could do for your eye health is normalize your blood sugar levels.
Yeah, absolutely. There's
no question. Yeah. Now, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of tissues in the body that are what they call aldose reductase producers, so they make, under a certain condition, they make this enzyme. So when your blood sugar levels go up, all right, we won't get too complicated into this, but when your blood sugar levels go up, these tissues make an enzyme that basically converts glucose into sorbitol. If you're consuming a lot of sugar, your blood sugar levels are elevated, you're basically in certain tissues, you're taking glucose and converting it to sorbitol. Yeah. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, sorbitol attracts water. So these cells swell up and they burst, right? They attract water because they're loaded with glucose that got converted into sorbitol. And what's interesting is that the eyes, so cataracts, the eyes have a lot of these tissue-producing cells that create this, aldose reductase, and it just
they burst.
The eyes are very sensitive to blood sugar, in a sense that some of the cells swell up and blow up. You end up with a condition in diabetes called retinopathy, which is the increase in little tiny blood vessels to the eyes, but they're so fragile.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the blood vessels get hardened. Sugar, through a whole bunch of processes.
We call it glycation.
They harden the blood vessels, right? So the eyes are so sensitive to two things, really. It's amazing what happens when you improve blood flow in the body. Your eyes benefit from that big time, right? So somebody that they're not even diabetic, and this is another thing, high normal blood sugar levels. So you're still normal, but you're still elevated over a long period of time will hurt your eyes. Yeah. Your eyes will age faster as a result of that. So if you want to accelerate the aging of your eyes, have elevated blood sugar levels over a period of time, your eyes will age quicker. So when you cut out sugar, you're
improving your eyes.
You improve your blood glucose levels. Mm-hmm. You're saving the health of your eyes. No question. Your eyes are so sensitive to blood sugar, and from blood flow to cells, health, everything. It's no good. So that's one thing. So we talked about liver. We talked about eye health. Let's talk about joints.
Joints, yeah.
Let's talk about joint pain and even tendon pain, even like low back pain and shoulder pain and everything.
We always find it, at least my patients always find it fascinating, when people that have a lot of pain, fibromyalgia, joint pain, muscle pain, and I'm asking them to change their diet, because they never see the relationship between their pain and diet. They only assume it's, well, fibromyalgia. I don't know how I got that, but they don't put the connection together. But I'm always telling them that when you got a lot of pain, what will put pain on steroids is sugar. So if you lower your sugars, and what a difference it makes in joint pain. I tell you, I've had patients over the years within a couple of weeks see an enormous difference in pain levels when they clean up and cut the sugar out of their diet. It's incredible. You know, some people, oh, doc, I don't have that much sugar. But I said, well, look, are you drinking coffee? Yeah. What do you put in it? Well, yeah, I have 3 or 4, but 2 teaspoons of sugar, but it's not a lot of sugar. It adds up. So, if you do nothing else, like cut the extra sugars out of your diet, look at labels, read labels. It's amazing how much sugar you're consuming. Get that down, and your joints will thank you. They really will. Muscles will thank you.
Yeah, and, it's funny because we talked about this before, surprising signs of insulin resistance and carpal tunnel syndrome, especially idiopathic, right? You're not sure why you have carpal tunnel syndrome. You're not really doing anything. Just you see this, a lot of people that have elevated insulin, one of the things that they are at risk for is this kind of spontaneous carpal tunnel syndrome. But it's all the same thing again, right? It affects blood flow. So blood sugar levels can affect blood flow to the joints.
Uric acid levels to the joints?
Yeah.
Big time. We
massive
talk about
cause
that.
of pain. Well, you and I have talked about this a long time ago. The two most surprising, most common cause of pain not associated with an injury. Like if somebody says, why, I was playing football, I blew my knee out. Well,
okay.
Yeah,
we got it.
That's an A and B thing. That's pretty easy to figure out. But if somebody comes in and says, listen, I don't really have an injury, but I'm sore. Well, the two most common causes of that is high blood sugar level or increased high circulating insulin and leaky gut. Leaky gut syndrome causes a lot of pain in people, and they don't even realize it, right? I mean, it's a common thing. Yeah. All right, so your joints are thankful. And there's a reason why diabetics are more likely to suffer from joint or some kind of disorder.
And how many diabetics have to have joint replacements, knee replacements? They just wear their joints right down. Hip replacements. I know they're, a lot of times they're heavier in that. But again, sugar is, it's so destructive, right?
All right, so that's the third one. Let's talk about the fourth one, which is your gut.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about belly fat, right? We're talking about the health of your digestive system.
Yeah, there's a battle that goes on in your gut. You're made up of bacteria. You got good, bad, and good and bad bacteria. And if you cut sugar out of your diet, one of the things that you're no longer feeding bad bacteria and yeast, fungus. People don't realize that, again, Candida, and we love probiotics, and it really makes a difference. You're adding lots of billions and billions of friendly bacteria a day. You and I recommend probiotics on a daily basis. But what I always say, look, you'll kill them when your army's bigger than their army. And the second thing is, if you don't feed the bad army, don't feed it. Like, it wants sugar. Yeast loves sugar. Bad bacteria, those bad guys, they're bottom feeders. They want sugar. They want something quick.
And, it's interesting because when Candida has become such a major issue in people's health, and it was one of those things that was laughed at for a long time, right? I mean, they just...
Dismissed.
It was completely dismissed.
Yeah,
Candida, mold, and fungus, and all these kind of things. They were laughed at. Now, it's not so funny anymore, right? I mean, there's a fair amount of research backing up a lot of different aspects of it. But I remember when Candida first came out, there was that Candida diet, and, they cut out sugars, white flours, and all that kind of stuff. And, I mean, that's the right idea.
Yeah.
But, again, there's a bigger issue there as well. How did that get in there in the first place?
Yeah.
If your digestive system is built in a way that the acid in your stomach and your gallbladder and everything should kill that stuff before it gets into your gut. So that's when you're dealing with a leaky gut issue. You're dealing with a low stomach acid issue. A gallbladder dysfunction.
The perfect storm.
Exactly. Then it gets into that. It gets into your bowels, and then it gets into your blood. But again, the sugar consumption, and it's funny, again, I like bringing up these old movies I remember when I was younger, but do you remember Gremlins? You probably never watched a Gremlin movie.
Nope.
But there were certain rules, right? They were really cute little fur balls.
Yeah.
Until you broke some of the rules, like never feed them after dark. There was these certain rules, never get them wet, right? And because all these little cute fur balls became gremlins, which were these like brat little scary things that wanted to cause mayhem everywhere they went. So this little cute thing went into that. Well, one of the things you couldn't do was pour water on them because they multiplied, right? These little fur balls would multiply with water. Sugar does the same thing to candida.
Yeah.
So you can get candida into your system, but then if you had a high sugar diet, then bacteria loves glucose, right? And you know what's funny? Years ago, there was people were talking about the cancer cells and glucose, and they're like, dietitians and all like, there's no connection between that. And now you have these leading cancer researchers saying, not so fast, right? Not so fast. A lot of cancer cells need glucose to grow.
As a fuel.
Sure. Now,
it's rocket fuel for them.
Again, cutting out sugar will not cure cancer. But again, you can't downplay the effect that cutting out cancer has on your immune system.
Yeah.
You can't. So again, your gut health, a lot of your gut health is determined or destroyed by elevated blood sugar levels, by overconsumption of sugar. So cutting out sugar
big time
is good for your gut. Mm-hmm. There's no question. All right, so that's the fourth one. And then the last one, we're almost out of time. Let's talk about probably one of the biggest effects of elevated blood sugar levels, even normal elevated blood sugar levels, is brain health.
Yeah.
Right?
But who would deny that, in a sense? Like, think about it. Like, every parent in the universe knows that you don't give little Johnny sugar before going to bed, because if Johnny has sugar before going to bed, Johnny can't go to sleep. And teachers know, every teacher I've ever talked to, not a dietitian, but a teacher that has to deal with kids with ADD or whatever, when they do bad? When they have a sugary cereal and they come to school. Every teacher that I've ever talked to would agree there is a connection between sugar and your brain. Okay? Now, they're only connecting it to little wee kids, but we know that sugar in the brain has an enormous effect on the function of your brain, right? And so, but again, like I said, the lay person, right, they got it. Mummies get it, right? Like I always say, being a grandparent is fun, because if you want to get your kids back, just feed your grandchildren sugar and say, hey, go home and bug your parents, right?
Well, and
I didn't do that to you kids.
No, but it's funny, right? You're right. I mean, I remember at my in-laws' house, my son was, Ethan was, I can't remember how old he was, young. And I remember waking up in the morning, coming around, Ethan's eating ice cream.
At grandma's.
And then I asked my father-in-law, I'm like, why is Ethan eating ice cream? He said, well, he asked. I'm like, oh, things have changed, haven't they? Because he asked, right? So you're right, it is funny. But again, too much sugar. Glucose metabolism in the brain is one of the biggest areas of research when it comes to dementia and Alzheimer's. There seems to be a glucose uptake problem by the cells in your brain as you move towards dementia and Alzheimer's. So there's a glucose metabolism problem that takes place in your brain. Now, you and I talked a lot about the different mechanisms of ways of heading down the path to dementia, but one of them is elevated blood sugar levels. Chronic, in fact, here, if I were to name the two Bonnie and Clyde for brain health, you watch that movie Highwaymen?
Yeah, wasn't that good?
Yeah, it's just an interesting story.
Well, it's because they, when, going back when you would have been a little kid, and even maybe before you were born, they came out with a movie, Bonnie and Clyde. And I'm trying to think of the name of the actors the other day, and it was such a big hit.
Well, they were glorified in a lot of ways, too, and you can really see they were really big celebrities.
And that's a true story, right?
Yeah,
the Highwaymen is a true story about the guys that
and they were serial
hunted
killers.
them down.
I mean, Bonnie and Clyde were serial killers. But anyways, Bonnie and Clyde, if I were to name the two Bonnie and Clyde for your brain health right now, would be elevated blood sugar levels and high blood pressure.
Yeah.
Midlife elevated blood sugar levels and midlife elevated high blood pressure are Bonnie and Clyde for your brain.
Yeah.
Your brain's the bank, and they're coming for the money.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So
and guess blood sugar. Guess blood pressure, I mean.
Yeah.
We
elevated
talked
insulin.
about it in
Insulin,
the previous
that's
episode, right?
So that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
you think about, if you want to protect the health of your brain, you definitely want to limit sugar intake. You can't consume a lot of sugar over your life and have a healthy brain as you age. Your eyes won't be healthy. Your liver won't be healthy. Your joints won't be healthy. Your gut won't be healthy. And now we're saying your brain won't be healthy. So if you want to start down the path of better health and cut out sugar, not only will you most likely lose some weight, these 5 things that we've mentioned will thank you, and you'll see positive health changes in those 5 areas.
Yeah, and rapidly. Yeah, not waiting 2 or 3 years.
No, that's right.
Rapidly. You will get results rapidly by doing it.
Your metabolic markers of those areas will improve. There's no question.
Yep.
So again, those are the 5 immediate results when you cut out sugar. Again, we went through a lot of material, but we want to thank you for listening, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Doctor Is In podcast from martinclinic.com. If you have any questions, you can reach us at info@martinclinic.com. If you're not a newsletter subscriber, you can head to our website and sign up for free. We also have a private Facebook group that you can join. It's a community of awesome people. Finally, I do a Facebook Live every Thursday morning at 8:30. Join us again next week for a new episode.